The Jays combined for 83 points, but somehow that wasn't enough. I'll tell you what that somehow is. Donovan freaking Mitchell, even though the Celtics were shorthanded, they had a chance. They couldn't do it. Cavs win, and we're talking about it here from TD Garden on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Yup. Beantown, be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Back to back, if I say it, it's stamped. Locked on number 19, the best one, the next one. Juice loose in your pool now for the next run. It's the C's, who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT, Karalis, recap the madness. Every game, every practice. Best daily pod, no cap like Brad Beckett. Clutch like Drew to KP, tap in daily. Prime time, dapping D White on the sideline. Raining Jays, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Where is your team every day? And it got you covered every day, Monday through Friday, plus bonus podcasts like this one when the Celtics play on a Friday or a Saturday night. This is a Friday night game where the Celtics lost to the Cavs 123-116. So doing a little shorter version of the podcast, but giving you basically a full podcast anyway, here from TD Garden. If you're new to the show, I am John Karalis. I've been covering the Celtics for about 20 years, doing right now for Boston Sports Journal. Make sure you're subscribed, watch the show on YouTube, get into the comment section, share your thoughts on a disappointing night, but also not so disappointing because, look, the Celtics were without Kristaps Porzingis. They were without Jrue Holiday. So kind of coming in, I thought some of the juice was sapped from this matchup. You know, this is, we're not getting anything out of this as far as like playoff implications. The seeding is already set, like, and especially after this loss, it was, you know, the Celtics aren't catching the Cavaliers, and I never thought they were catching. Even if they won this game, I didn't think they were catching the Cavaliers. So there's no intrigue, there's no nothing. And then so without Porzingis, without Holiday, I think the Cavs were able to play the Celtics a little bit differently. So not a ton of information coming out of this game that you can take into the playoffs, other than I think the Cavs feel like if the Celtics are shorthanded, they're not banking on Tatum and Brown being able to do it themselves. Although the Jays did combine for 83 points, which is the most they've ever combined for. It was obvious the way the Cavs played this game in the second half. They were basically daring Tatum and Brown, like, you got to do this. We're not giving you a bunch of assists. We're not letting you kick it out for threes. It's what killed the Cavs in the first half, and they kind of turned that around on the Celtics. Donovan Mitchell, 41 points, 12 points in the fourth quarter, 10 in the third quarter. He was just his normal, awesome, incredible self against the Celtics. He's averaging 30.8 points per game against the Celtics in his career. That now surpasses, as I choke on this stat, that now surpasses Michael Jordan. No one, literally no one in NBA history has averaged more against the Boston Celtics than Donovan Mitchell. He is incapable of having a normal game against the Boston Celtics. And so he came in and did his usual stuff against Boston, torching them in the fourth quarter, hitting ridiculous shots. And I can already see this coming. Here comes Danny Cunningham, who's going to interrupt the podcast. This is like the most unprofessional thing you can do, is interrupt another person's podcast like this. It's just the absolute pinnacle, a lack of regard for a person's creative process. Hop on in here, Danny.
I think I'm very unprofessional.
Yeah. Just walk right in front of the camera. Yeah. I'm doing all right. So I interrupted Danny's podcast, which is why I'm saying all of this stuff. Let me flip this camera around this way a little bit, and then we can do this. All right. So Danny Cunningham, you Cleveland Cavaliers came to Boston. No Porzingis, no Jrue Holiday, but they got a hard-fought win. What was your big takeaway?
So I think that the Cavs did a great job
obviously after the first 5 minutes of this game where they were down by 22 points, I thought they did a great job of making the Boston Celtics play the game the Cavs want them to play rather than the game that the Boston Celtics want to play. Like, I mean, what does Boston average in terms of 3-point attempts per game? It's almost 50, right? So they took 39 in this game, which is the 5th fewest they've had. They took 13 threes in the second half. Jayson Tatum was awesome. Jaylen Brown was awesome, but those guys are taking shots that the Cavs want them to take rather than taking shots that count for 3 points. And they also kept Tatum off the free throw line, which I think was a really big deal, right? I think he only took 5 free throws in this game. And if he's going to score 46 points, I think the Cavs are happy with the way he scored 46 points. If he scores 46 points because he hits 8 threes and gets to the line a bunch and gets layups, like, you're in for a long night. If he scores 46 points because he makes like 10 mid-range shots, hits a couple threes, gets to the line a little bit, but doesn't live at the rim, doesn't live behind the arc, you'll live with that. So I think that's like the best thing they can say about this.
Yeah, 2 assists in the second half. Like, Tatum was on his way to a big game. At halftime, 30 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. So he finishes with 40, 16, and 9. So limiting him to the 2 assists in the second half. I mean, obviously some of that is missed shots, but I thought that was a big deal. I thought this game really did change on Jaylen Brown's 4th foul in the third quarter because he was cooking.
Right.
That third quarter, he had 8 points. He had 2 assists. He'd been to the line 5 times. He got fouled on a 3-pointer, so he fouled a couple of times in just like 4 minutes of play or so, 5 minutes of play. And on top of that, he was defending Donovan Mitchell. So Jaylen gets he sits down with his 4th foul. The Celtics had been up 17. He sits down up 14. Then Donovan Mitchell goes off for 10 points after Brown sits down. Ultimately, it's a 21-11 outscoring the Celtics, get it down to like 3 going into the 4th quarter. I thought Jaylen was doing what Jayson was doing in the first half, and it was like his turn. And once he sat down, this game just completely shifted.
Totally. I think that was the biggest moment that you look at in this game is when Jaylen Brown went to the bench. And to be fair here, too, that's something that happened the last time these two teams played, where Boston got out to a big lead. And I think Jaylen actually fouled out of that game and didn't finish. And the Celtics were able to finish the job that night and win by 7. But when he sat down, the Cavs really, I think, started to matchup hunt a little bit. We started to see them do what the Celtics often do to teams, where they will pick out the weakest defender. And this happened, I think, a little bit more in the 4th quarter, where they started to just hunt Sam Hauser mercilessly. And that, to me, was one of the other big things that you look at. And when Jaylen Brown sat down, and of course, Boston being without Holiday, being without Porzingis, like, they're a different team without those guys, and they have different weak spots when those guys are not playing that they don't have when that starting 5 is together. But the Cavs did a great job taking advantage of that. And when Brown wasn't out there, it's just not also that they didn't have that scoring punch. It's that they lost one of their better defenders who had one of the heaviest loads on that end of the floor. And I think that's the really big deal that you look at.
Evan Mobley, I thought, was a game changer too. And he's somebody that the Celtics have dared in the past to beat them. Oh, and there goes my light. Yeah. I'll fix that in a second. Evan Mobley is a guy that the Celtics have dared to beat him, to beat them in the past. And in this one, it's not a massive game, but 17 points, 12 rebounds, 2 of 5 from 3. He did enough, and he had 7 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds in the 4th quarter.
He had 11 points, 8 boards in the 4th quarter. Like, he scored the first 9 points of the quarter for the Cavs. He hit the 3 that put them in front later in the quarter. I don't want to say late. It was like midway through the quarter, but that was because he didn't play well until the 4th quarter. He had 17 points. He only scored 6 of them in the first 3 quarters. And I think that's one of the best things. If you want to look at the game from Evan Mobley's perspective, you think, okay, he wasn't playing great again. He played really well, I thought, the time the Cavs came to Boston in November. I thought he was awesome in that game. The last 2, he wasn't very good. And then this one, not very good again. But you do wonder, and of course, no Kristaps Porzingis, and you have to preface it with that. But you do wonder, did something click for him then that he figured out, okay, I know how to play against this team a little bit now, and then launched the Cavs into a great 4th quarter that saw them, I don't want to say destroy, but beat handily the Celtics in that 12 minutes and win the game because of it. Like, the Cavs don't win this game without a bunch of guys, obviously, but Evan Mobley, despite the fact that he was 3rd on the team in scoring, I think he's closer to the top of the list than that.
All right, you go back and finish your podcast. I got to fix this light and finish up.
No one can see me. They deserve to see my face.
Okay, now I'm definitely getting you out of here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, now that we've got the light fixed here, and there's Danny walking off in the background after gloating. Look, great game from the Cavaliers. They played really, really well. You play the team that's in front of you, right? Like we can say here in Boston that, yeah, no KP, no Drew. Like that's a big deal for the Celtics because Darius Garland was able to take advantage of Payton Pritchard and switching onto or attacking Sam Hauser, and Evan Mobley was able to do things that he might not normally be able to do. And the way the Cavs defended the Celtics, where they took away those 3-pointers in the second half and in the fourth quarter, that was, if they had Porzingis and ran pick and pop and got some 3-point looks that way, that would have changed some things, because if he's hitting those shots, then the entire defense changes and you got to react to him, which opens up some other things. So no doubt if the Celtics were whole and healthy, then this might have been a different story. Maybe not. But you probably don't get 83 combined from Jayson and Jaylen, but also it's good to know that you can get 83 combined. Again, I thought in the second half, like Jaylen actually had a more efficient night, 54% shooting, 67% from 3, 70% from the line. Tatum was 51, 33, and 80. So Jaylen was hitting his 3-pointers. If Jaylen doesn't sit in the third quarter up 14, I think it's a much different story. I think the way he was defending Donovan Mitchell, it just makes things more difficult. Mitchell maybe has 34 instead of 41. It just changes the dynamic of the game ever so slightly. And after the game, the Celtics were saying, like, we had it, like no moral victories here. There's no looking at this and saying, hey, we were right there and we did our best or whatever. No moral victories. The Celtics said, we had this game. We should have won this game. Jaylen said it. We should have won this game. We had our opportunities. Jaylen said, I wish I had some of those shots back in the fourth quarter. I think maybe they were pressing a little bit. They felt the momentum changing. And like Danny said, the Celtics were playing at the Cavs pace. They were playing the Cavs game, and they probably rushed some stuff, settled for some stuff because they weren't getting the 3-point shots that they normally wanted. Maybe Jayson probably forced a couple of them up. Also, would have been great to get something from the bench. The Celtics got 6 points off of the bench. All of it is Payton Pritchard. No one else from off the bench shot anything. Pritchard was 2 of 4. That's the bench numbers. 2 of 4, 6 points. Luke Cornett played like 20 minutes. Didn't get a shot. They couldn't get a pick and roll. They couldn't get an alley-oop. They couldn't get a dump. He couldn't get a putback. Nothing. And again, this is a little unfair because normally Al Horford and Sam Hauser would be coming off the bench. They'd be playing different minutes, and maybe you'd get some production that way. But it is what it is, and Luke has to be able to get in there. He did get a couple of offensive rebounds, but you got to be able to get in there and get a couple of putbacks. You got to get something. Pritchard needed to do more than 2 of 4 for 6 points. That's, if he's going to be the 6th man of the year, this is where you perform. This is where you put up the numbers and show I am 6th man of the year material. And this is a tough matchup for him. And this type of game is where you say, well, is how playable is Pritchard in certain matchups? I think he's better, and I think he can obviously play better against the Cavs. But anytime he has a bad game like this, you say, oh, well, what's this going to mean in the playoffs? So the Celtics, outscored 33-6 by the bench is you just need something. And look, I'm putting some of this on Joe Mazzulla because why didn't you play Torrey Craig more than 2.5 minutes? His first stint, don't even really remember it, although he was a -8, so it wasn't a great first stint. But even so, even at a -8, you say, well, so what? Honestly, so what? Because again, everything has been decided. The loss, like this loss itself, doesn't mean anything to the Celtics. It means a whole lot more to the Cavs. We've talked about that in the preview with Danny yesterday. It means a ton more to the Cavs. But at the same time, you have to get Torrey Craig acclimated, right? You have to get him ready to go. You have to, you just have to have him as an option in the playoffs. If you can't get him acclimated in a game like this, then when are you? I think that Mazzulla was trying to send a message to the Cavs. I think he really, really wanted to win this game. And he wants to win every game, right? He wants to go 82-0. He's not going to sit there and say, yeah, we're going to sacrifice wins for anything. He wants to win every game. Sometimes his competitive nature gets the best of him. I think this might have been one of those games. I think in Joe's quest for every psychological advantage, I think what he wanted was to say to the Cavs, or to have the Cavs leave Boston and say, man, we went in there and they didn't have Kristaps Porzingis or Jrue Holiday. Their rim protecting center who can kill you from three, their point of attack defensive menace on the perimeter who kills Darius Garland and can hit, bury you on corner threes or any three. We went into Boston and they didn't have those guys and we still lost. He wanted to send Cleveland home with this thought of like, everything we've tried hasn't worked. The only game you won was that 20-point fourth quarter from Donovan Mitchell, and it took that to beat the Celtics by 3. And you come into Boston with missing 2 of your starters, 2 of your most important players, and we still couldn't do it. He wanted to have the Cavs doubt themselves. He wanted that competitive advantage. And so he played 7 guys. He played a playoff rotation, and it didn't work out. I do think the Celtics kind of ran out of gas a little bit. That one possession, and even the Cavs didn't even score, but Mobley got 3 offensive rebounds, and the Celtics had to play defense for almost a full minute, it seemed. That alone, like, it didn't matter if the Cavs scored. At that point, it was just more about wearing the Celtics down. And so the next possession, they were tired. And, I think that played a role. I definitely feel like some of the decisions were kind of the Celtics trying to push through the fatigue. I think it looked like they were kind of at the end of, like, out of gas at the very end. And even so, look, the Celtics opened up on a 25-3 run. So they're up 22 in the first quarter, which is meaningless, right? Brad Stevens would say this all the time when they had a big lead. Coaches, one of the things that coaches fear most is a big early lead, because 25-3 after the first 4 minutes doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't mean a thing. 22-point lead heading into the fourth quarter doesn't mean anything. How is it going to mean anything at the beginning of a game? If the Celtics are ever down 25 in the first quarter, doesn't mean a thing. I mean, yeah, you got to come back, but you have an entire game to work your way back. And it's exactly what the Cavs did. No rush, no overreaction. Just get a couple of buckets, cut it down, walk the lead down. They did a great job of walking the lead down. So I think Joe was trying to get into the Cavs' heads. And I think it was a little costly. I just would have rather have seen if the Celtics lost anyway, right? So I would rather have seen some different combinations. Torrey Craig out there. I know Nemish Queta's it's probably not the best matchup, but I don't know. Try it. You're down a big. Let's try it. How about Xavier Tillman, which I know he's probably not a good idea, but try something. Try something different. Try a different look. And maybe some of it is Joe didn't want to throw some potential playoff wrinkles out there, and that's fine too. But I still feel like if you're really trying to win this game, you could have gone a different way. I just didn't like the rotations. But at the end, credit the Cavs. The Cavs won this game. Like, this is just a case of the Cavs came in after that really slow start for them. They did the things they needed to do. They won this game, and the Celtics, despite being shorthanded, had a chance to win this game, and they didn't. They need more from their role players. They need more from their bench. And if they're not whole, this does raise one question of, if you don't have Porzingis in a playoff situation, if you don't have a couple of guys in a playoff situation, how can you overcome that? How are you going to be able to manage your way through a series? And obviously, any team that's missing a couple of starters has the potential to lose a playoff series. Doesn't matter who you are. The Celtics are built to withstand that better than most. And if you don't have Torrey Craig ready, and I'm not asking him a lot, but go out there and defend. Go out there and be a part of a championship level defense for 10 minutes, not 2 minutes. But hey, tough loss, 2 in a row for only the second time this season. It's another home loss, but I don't think this is the same as the other home losses. But now the Celtics are in a tough spot because they play again Sunday afternoon. So you have Saturday off, but you don't, it is essentially a short turnaround. It's almost like a half back-to-back. They do have Saturday off, but they don't have that 7:30 start. That's a 1 o'clock start. So half your day. So it's like 1.5 day instead of the next day. Regardless, it's going to be tough against the Nuggets. Like, we'll see how the Celtics recover. But hey, what we have is 83 points from the Jays. And that's one of the best games we've ever seen out of them. I'll take that. I'll enjoy that. I do not enjoy the result of this game, but so be it. It is what it is. Hope you enjoyed this bonus podcast. Thank you for stopping by. Hello, Cavs fans. If you're a Locked On Cavs fan, we had dueling interruptions. This one was planned. I did not let Danny know I was going to go interrupt his podcast. So I know how it is. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe to the podcast. If you are subscribed, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching on the YouTube page. Get in there and share your comments there in the comment section. And I would love it if you shared the podcast and told everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.